I'm Patrick Watson, I'm an astrologer, and you're watching 12 different types of Aries rising. Thank you so much for buying this, and I hope that you enjoy this. You better strap in because this is going to take a while. So, first, in this introduction, I just wanted to get through my acknowledgments. So I want to acknowledge Chris Brennan, who helped give me the idea for doing a more comprehensive survey of all 144 possible Ascendant and Ascendant Ruler combinations through his Ruler of the Ascendant in the Houses lecture. And I also wanted to give an acknowledgement to Adam Ellenbars, who kind of reminded me about Robert Schmidt's conception of the houses in terms of diurnal and zodiacal motion. And I'd like to give acknowledgement to Alice Trendle, who has done a fantastic service to the astrological community for making AstroDataBank a publicly available service. Without that, I would not have been able to get as many birth data that I've needed. I'd like to also acknowledge Dougie Burrell, who assisted me with data collection and organization to be able to look at data from AstroDataBank on SolarFire. And I would also like to thank Arthur Litt-Bonowitz for his creative contributions to helping me come up with some of the names for the Ascendant Rulers. And last of all, I'd like to thank my wife, Beth, for putting up with the extraordinary amount of work that went into making this. So, with no further ado, let us look at the question, what is Aries rising? What does Aries rising mean? So, on your left-hand side, this is a picture of the sky of the eastern horizon of my location, the morning of uploading this to YouTube. And on the right side of the screen is a graphical representation of the sky. So this AS equals the eastern horizon, standing for the ascendant. And as we see, as the Earth turns, we see that planets will arise. So we see Jupiter is coming up, and here Jupiter has now risen into visibility. And now the Earth is turning so that Capricorn is rising, and now Saturn is rising. And now Aquarius is rising as the Earth continues to turn. And now we see Pisces is rising. And there's Venus, and there's Mercury. And now Aries is rising, and the Sun in Aries is rising. So, what we can see from this is that when we refer to Aries rising, what that means, ultimately, is that this is someone who was born when the tropical sign of Aries was rising on the eastern horizon at the time and place they were born. Since this is where planets ascend into visibility, this is the rising sign is also known as the ascendant. So if you encounter a chart where Aries is rising on the ascendant, the first question that you should ask is, where is Mars? There are only 12 signs Mars can be in, so there are at least 12 generally different types of Aries rising. Now, as you're going to learn, there's a lot of things that go into individualizing someone's ascendant ruler, so there's really a lot more than just 12. But in terms of sign and house, there are 12 general types of Aries rising can possibly have based on the number of signs Mars can be in, because Mars rules Aries. So let's look at Mars. All right. So the reason why astrologers think Mars is the way it is, as a warlike planet, as a more angry planet, as a planet of conflict, etc., is partly due to its red appearance. It evokes the color of blood, fire, and passion. The surface of Mars is red because it's rich in iron, which just happens to be the metal that we associate with Mars from the astrological tradition. And the surface of Mars itself, if you look at it in a telescope, you can see these giant scars from meteor impacts. So it's a very prominent feature of the planet. And even the way the planet behaves, and when I say behaves, I mean the way it appears to move from the perspective of Earth, is that it has a very rough and irregular synodic cycle. It goes very far off the ecliptic compared to the other planets. In contrast to Venus's cycle, which is the planet, ostensibly of love and harmony and beauty, it has this very orderly, pretty cycle, which is very reliable, and it's very almost elegant. Whereas Mars is a bit more rough. It's kind of more difficult to put a nice bow on it. It kind of alternates between 15 and 17 year periods of recurrence, and it has this bright red appearance. So it kind of just gives us this impression that this planet, even in its appearance behavior, is a planet which kind of tends to break order as opposed to cultivating it. And its cycle also generally matches up with Saturn's 30 years. After 30 years, Mars makes 2 of its 15-year synodic returns, and that's the first planet it makes that kind of relationship with. So Mars and Saturn are both the malefics of the solar system in astrology. So it's considered to be more of a destructive kind of planet, more malevolent or malefic influence as opposed to a benefic or constructive one. And consistently across the ages, across different cultures and histories, Mars has always been associated with the gods associated with war and conflict. So I have some of them listed there. Nergal from the Sumerian Babylonian societies, and Horus the Red, he's called in Egyptian and in Egyptian astrology, and he's called the Star of Aries in Greek astrology, and Angaraka in Indian astrology. Mars, the god of war from Roman mythology, and he's called the Fire Star in Chinese. I'm not going to try the pronunciation. So this is kind of how we get this idea of what Mars is kind of like. Now, there's a further way that we know what Mars is sort of like is we've noticed that there are some basic functions that Mars seems to do. Now, I think I'm getting this idea from Robert Schmidt, the late Robert Schmidt, who basically was able to distill each planet down to a basic function. And so the basic function of Mars is to separate or divide, to sever, to cut away from. So people represented by Mars cut their way through life. They sever their way through life. So that means cutting away from others or cutting through others. And obviously this has some positive and negative manifestations. On the one hand, that can be someone who is courageous or bold or takes action, but there can also be downsides to that. There could also be forceful, violent, etc. But in any case, they tend to be more the qualities of Mars tends to be more rough and rugged and tough and spiky and dangerous. And in astrological practice, we kind of see that Mars doesn't really like to play nice. People who are very Marsy kind of want what they want without an apology. They're not afraid of confrontation, and they just kind of need to burn off energy. They're competitive. They're thrill seekers, risk takers. Careers that we associate with Mars are going to be things like the military or athletics or firefighting or police, crime, surgeons, chefs, stunt performers, anything dangerous or anything with involving heat and metal and fire and danger and loud noises. And but this impulse, this Martian impulse, is applied in different areas and in different ways depending on its house and sign and aspects and more. But why does Mars rule Aries? Why should Aries be a Mars-like sign? Well, it has to do with the relationship and relative distance of the planets from the sun. So what we see here is keep your eye on Earth, the sun, and Mercury. Okay? So you're going to see that at various points, Mercury will appear as far away from the sun as possible from Earth's perspective. And there we go. Now it's going to appear retrograde from Earth's perspective, going direct, and boom, it's at its maximum elongation. In zodiacal terms, this means that that Mercury is never more than one sign away from the sun. So the two solar signs of the zodiac are Cancer and Leo. In fact, in the Zoroastrian tradition of astrology, which is really, really old, they consider to be the sun to actually be the co-ruler of Cancer. But since those times, the moon has been more associated with Cancer as a kind of feminine version of the sun. The sun is what we satellite around, but The moon is the Earth's satellite, so it's sort of like they're kind of like complementary opposites. The sun, the light of the day; the moon, the light of the night, kind of thing. So there's kind of a solar connotation to Cancer, is what I'm trying to say. So the distance of the signs of Mercury, Gemini and Virgo, are one sign away from the solar signs of Cancer and Leo. So Gemini is next to Cancer, and Virgo is next to Leo. So guess that's where that's where Mercury goes. Okay. Now, if we keep our eye on the Earth, Sun, and Venus, we'll see that they come up to a maximum elongation right about now-ish. Yeah, see, they're in a 90-degree angle. So when Venus is in this condition, Venus is furthest away from the Sun when it's two signs away from the Sun. This is the furthest it can go. So the sextile, or that distance of being 2 signs away, is most characteristic of Venus. So Venus gets the next signs. Venus is 2 signs away from Cancer, and it's 2 signs away from Leo. So Venus rules Taurus and Libra. It's the most characteristic distance that it has from the Sun, and it maintains that kind of relationship in relation to the most solar signs. So Taurus and Libra then become Venus-like signs. Now, Mars is the first exterior planet, which is interesting in itself because it suggests that it's the first departure from whatever the planets between the Earth and the Sun represents. And the Mars itself represents severing and cutting. So Mars is, that next step, severing away from our position relative to the Sun. So Mars, what's interesting with Mars is, obviously because it's an exterior planet rather than an interior planet, the retrogrades happen while it's in opposition with the Sun rather than in an interior conjunction. But the square is still really important because when Mars is in a waxing square with the Sun, that's usually the sign where it tends to go retrograde in. So the square can almost be seen as the point where Mars is gearing up to make its to make its stop, to make its retrograde station. So additionally to the fact that Mars obviously would just get the next sign in order, Aries follows Taurus and Scorpio follows Libra. There is kind of a special Sun-Mars relationship that revolves around the square, relative to the Earth's position. So Mars naturally gets the square aspect from Cancer to Aries and the square aspect from Leo to Scorpio. And of course, we know the square to be a more tense or conflicting kind of aspect. And so naturally, this is Mars's aspect. So this is why Mars rules Aries and Scorpio, because they have Mars's characteristic distance from the solar signs of Cancer and Leo. So what's the difference between Aries and Scorpio? The astrologer Austin Kopak gave me this fantastic way of thinking about the difference between Aries and Scorpio. So Aries is the diurnal home of Mars, right? And Scorpio is the nocturnal sign of Mars. And samurai are warriors who come from a noble upper class, or they're elite, and they served an emperor or a leader. Whereas ninjas came from the lower classes, and they served whoever paid the most. Samurai dressed in elaborate, colorful metal armor. They were designed to be seen, whereas ninja, were dressed in plain black, and they were designed to be invisible. They were designed to be stealthy and in darkness. The samurai were they specialized in hand-to-hand combat. They fought kind of with honor, whereas the ninjas they didn't fight with honor. They specialized in ambush, espionage, sabotage, infiltration, assassination, kind of more underhanded. And whereas these samurai figures were more like revered, and they were the kind of these public figures of strength, visible in the day, ninjas were these feared, deadly figures. and who you never saw, and if you did see them, that was probably the end or close to it. So, samurai, almost the equivalent, in a sense, to like how the U.S. Army or Marines or police are sort of treated today versus like mercenaries and hitmen. One is sort of a publicly sanctioned kind of, approach to violence, and then another one is an underhanded or criminal approach to violence. So in a very basic way, Aries is kind of, the day home of Mars, warriors of the day, versus Scorpio, which is the nocturnal home of Mars, and it's sort of more like the idea of predators rather than warriors. So that's kind of the difference between Aries and Scorpio, which is important to consider when we think about what someone's like as an Aries rising as opposed to a Scorpio rising. So another way we know about some of the characteristics of Aries is not just that it's a Mars-like sign. Like all of the fire and air signs, Aries is a diurnal sign, which means it's a more active and selective, radiating type of energy. It's not passive, and it doesn't just take what comes to. It's a more diurnal, outwardly expressing, more extroverted kind of sign, not passive. It's also a cardinal sign, like Aries, Cancer, Libra, and Capricorn. So these are the signs which are typically seen at the beginning of new seasons. So this is why Aries is considered to be an initiating, beginning, or action-taking sign. It's a fire sign, like Leo and Sagittarius, so it has some of these fiery qualities of being dynamic and impulsive and passionate and heated. And we already know it's the home of Mars, so it's this place where aggression, boldness, courage, action are all kind of, at home. We also know that it's the exile of Venus, which means that it's not a very good place for Venus to be. So Venus wants to make things, happy and pleasant for everyone and to get along with everyone, and that's not supported in this sign of, taking action and kicking ass and taking names, right? Aries is also the place where the sun is exalted, so it has these solar kind of connotations. It's a place of proud assertion, honorable aggression, where decisive action or even violence can be supported or publicly sanctioned, or celebrated by authorities and leaders. So it's this place for leadership and entrepreneurship, and it's more kind of above board. And finally, it's the fall of Saturn. It's one of the worst signs for Saturn to be in. Saturn is all about being cautious and fearful and being slow about things and being careful. But Aries is not a good place for that. Aries is a place where caution, doubt, fear, barriers, rules, and the idea of thinking about the consequences, like that doesn't work very well in Aries, because Aries is all about go, go, go. It's not about waiting around and thinking about it and hemming and hawing. It's about taking action. And so in short, Aries is the home of the strong, the proud, the brave, not wusses, goody two-shoes, and wet blankets. So I would say that a good motto for Aries really is just do it, which is so funny because the phrase just do it came into the popular consciousness on August 7th, 1988, the first ad which aired with this slogan on it. And this is when Mars was slowing down in the sky, ready to go retrograde in its own sign of Aries. So, it's this motivational slogan, and it's used for an athletics company, and it's supposed to be motivating, and it's literally just this call to action, just do it. So I think that's a pretty good motto for Aries, myself. But anyway. So, Vettius Valens says that depending on its relationship with the house ruler Mars, people born under Aries rising will be brilliant, distinguished, authoritarian, just, hard on offenders, free, governing, bold in thought, boastful, great-hearted, restless, unstable, haughty, inflated, intimidating, quickly changing, and wealthy. And when the house rulers are favorably situated and have benefics in aspect, kings and powerful men are born, those having the say over life and death. Now, I think he might be a little dramatic with this description, but I think that it definitely seems to encapsulate some of these ideas of, what Aries is kind of about and what Mars is about. And the key phrase in his description there was depending on its relationship with the house ruler Mars, because this is what we're going to be looking at. We're not even at the 12 different types yet. This is just the intro, right? So, I mean, the Mars in each house and sign, is how we're going to be getting to the 12 different types of Aries rising. So we're going to be looking at the relationship that the house ruler, Mars, has to Aries rising in a given chart. And the importance of the ascendant ruler across astrology is a testament to the fact that, this is a really important point. This is not just a random planet you should pay attention to. This is a thing, is what I'm trying to say. Because in horary astrology, the ruler of the ascendant represents the person who asked the question and something about the nature of the question. In electional astrology, the ruler of the ascendant describes the nature of the endeavor or what's intended to be accomplished. In inceptional astrology, the ruler of the ascendant describes the impetus of the event and its general nature. So in the same way, in natal astrology, the ruler of the ascendant similarly describes one's general character or nature, the one planet that truly represents the native, while other planets represent other figures or circumstances in their lives, not extensions of their personality necessarily. And how the ascendant ruler can manifest? It can manifest through one's physical appearance. So sometimes this is literally through one's appearance, but not always. And this is because the eastern horizon is where planets make their first appearance. So that's why the ascendant is supposed to be about your appearance. Stereotypes of a Mars-like appearance is anything that makes you look kind of tough, fiery, red, especially marked with burns or scars if Mars is rising. Red seems to be a popular color. Static personality traits, profession, or type. So sometimes actors will have Mars in a certain part of their chart if they're Aries rising, and it will show something about the kinds of roles they take on, the kinds of types they can play, more than it shows actually something about themselves. It shows kind of the person they can project themselves to be. So some Mars-like traits we discussed are anger, courage, sharpness, boldness, and obviously some of these careers associated with Mars tend to be popular with people who have Mars as an operating planet as their ascendant ruler. And sometimes the ascendant ruler can show up in ways that someone is known, or like in ways that they're notorious, rather than like the way they act day to day. There's a few examples I have that are sort of like that, but generally it's it's something that should describe someone more or less consistently through the life, but especially at certain times, and we'll get to that. In almost all of the cases, though, there is some sort of special focus in their life that relates to the topic of the house position of the ascendant ruler. And I'll have tons of examples to show you that display that principle in action. So, pardon me, the ascendant and ascendant ruler can be individualized in the following ways. How much Aries has risen above the horizon, the whole sign house Mars occupies, its diurnal and zodiacal motion, and its aspect relationship to the ascendant. You can also individuate it through the sign Mars occupies, its mode and element, its dignity or lack thereof, through domicile rulership, exaltation, or triplicity. The sect of the chart, typically, at least in theory, if it's a day chart, Mars should be more destructive because it's like it gets too hot during the day. It's already a hot planet, right, or something like that. And by night, it's supposed to be more constructive because it's sort of, cool down a bit. Also, to take into consideration is the phase of Mars with the Sun, its speed and direction. Aspects to and from Mars with other planets or angles color its expression and hinder or help its agenda. I have a bunch of examples to show you about how differently Mars can show up based on the aspects to Mars. And of course, you could also consider the decans and bounds that Mars occupies within a sign. I don't focus on that too much in this in this video, but you can look at that. And of course, any fixed stars, the ascendant, Mars are closely conjunct with, could have some impact on how you might interpret it, or what particular ways or things you might be able to expect from it. So that is that. All right, so I'm going to end the introduction now at this point. So I'll continue on with Mars in all of the 12 houses and signs with Aries rising in the next video. Thank you.